Okay, thank you, Lindy. Welcome, everybody. My name is Michael Olmack with the Small Business Administration District Office in Wichita, Kansas. Today, I was going to give you an update on the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, the EIDL, and provide some troubleshooting tips and addresses, things to look for to help resolve any issues that you may have. And you can see based on the agenda, everything from how to apply to if you were declined, if you received the loan, but it really isn't sufficient to keep you solvent for a 6-month period, how to address that. Also, if you are planning to sell or move or anything in which the lien that the SBA has on your business assets, what to do, how to get that temporarily lifted for transactional purposes. And also, if you have an insurance claim or if something happened to your property or equipment and you have an insurance claim, well, how to resolve that, because your insurance company is going to send you a check, not just to your name, but to the names of the lien holders. And I'll also talk about fraud. There's been a lot of cases of reported fraud, and so how to quickly address that. I'm not a member of the Office of Disaster Assistance. I don't have access to the system. I wish we did at the district office level, but we don't. All this information has come from clients that we've tried to help, what they did to resolve the situation, and also from our Office of Disaster Assistance. So this is just a way to put it all together to answer as many questions as possible. And that's the point of today's webinar. So the CARES Act, of course, there's the Paycheck Protection Program that is no longer taking new applications, but we can address questions about that. I'll give you our contact information at the end of the webinar, so feel free to reach out to us with questions regarding forgiveness and so forth. Today we'll talk about the EIDL, Economic Injury Disaster Loan, what it is. It's for working capital to help you pay your bills over a 6-month period after disaster. The program has actually been around for decades, and it's something that the federal government does to assist business owners and nonprofit leaders maintain their business, keep their business or their organization solvent after disaster. It comes with a healthy 30-year term, so you can take as long as you want, up to 30 years to pay it back. And there is no prepayment penalty if you wanted to pay it off early. The only cost is that interest rate, which is, for this disaster, 3.75%. It is not forgivable. The advance or the grant was, but we'll talk about that. And I'll also mention at the end of the presentation the ongoing SBA debt relief programs, which has never happened before, where the SBA would offer to pay 6 months, both principal, interest, and fees for existing 7A loans, 504 loans, and any new loans that are dispersed before September 27th. And there's also a 6-month deferral. So if you didn't quite get that in, you are still able to have your payments deferred, but the interest would accrue. So the Economic Injury Disaster Loan and the advance, which is also a new thing that never happened before because of this COVID crisis. The EIDL itself is a business loan. As I just mentioned before, it has a healthy term of 30 years, and you apply through our website. This is not done through our lenders. The PPP program was a loan you could obtain through your local lender, your bank, credit union. This is done directly from the SBA. It is a direct federal loan. The advance, which was very popular, was a grant that was authorized by the CARES Act. However, the $20 billion that Congress allocated or appropriated just for those grants that was exhausted on July 11th. Right now, there's debate going on in Washington. I don't know if they're going to, refund or bring the EIDL advance back into existence or not. All we can do is wait. At the bottom, you'll see the application. Oh, and by the way, this webinar and this slide deck will be emailed to you after the presentation, and all these links will be active. So you'll be able to go through this for reference and also to click on these links. This link down here at the bottom, apply online, that's how you apply. It's a questionnaire. You don't upload any documents, and unfortunately, you can't go back and change anything because it's a one-way portal for cybersecurity reasons. So I would advise having all your documentation ready before you start, so that you complete it as accurately as possible. There's also an FAQ, frequently asked questions document, and I put the link there at the bottom, so you can click on that as well. It'll answer a lot of what we talk about today and more. So when you apply, one thing to keep mind of is that any owner of your business besides you that has a 20% stake in it or 20% ownership also needs to be, their information needs to be included in the application. So really, the application you submit needs to represent 81% of the ownership of the business. And maybe that was a problem with some of you that they've had it declined is the SBA and the databases that it accesses could tell that there are other major owners of the business. And so their information had to be in the application as well. Unfortunately, those of us at the district office level, like me, we don't have access to the system. We can't check, the status of anything. So it's all done through our centers. The main center is in Fort Worth, Texas, and you can communicate with them with that 1-800 number or that email address, disastercustomerservice@sba.gov. So just to give you an idea of the scope of this disaster, the SBA has received 14 million applications. However, as of about 10 days ago, there was still 180 billion in funding still available. So the Congress appropriated 20 billion for the grants and much more for the loans themselves. And so the SBA can continue to offer these EIDL loans until this 180 billion is exhausted. So even though the deadline to apply, I think, is around Christmas time, it may end sooner than that, as soon as this funding appropriation is exhausted. So you will notice a credit inquiry if you have any credit monitoring service. And that's actually a good sign that the SBA is processing your loan. If Experian or the credit agency alerts you that someone pulled your credit, that is the SBA doing what it needs to process the loan, just to ensure you're a real person and that it's not fraudulent. So after you apply, it may take a while, hopefully not as long as it did for many. It took many weeks for people to get this email, but you will hopefully sooner than later receive an email with a message that looks like this screenshot there at the bottom. It's an invitation for you to open an account on the SBA portal. Basically, you click that green box, create account. It'll ask you to create a username and password. From there, the screen will look something similar to this on the right. It'll give you your loan amount that you were offered, but you don't have to take the maximum amount. There's that sliding scale, if you will. You can take the full amount or as little as $1,000. When you move that back and forth, you'll see the numbers at the bottom change. Of course, the term doesn't change, the interest rate doesn't change, but the payment amount would, because it's based on the 30-year term. So think of that. Also, keep in mind that these EIDL loans, over $25,000, the SBA will file a blanket UCC lien on only your business assets, not your personal. There's no personal guarantee with these loans. However, there will be a UCC, a general lien filed against business assets to take a position, the next position in line, if you will. So if your lender has first position, the SBA will not usurp that, will be second or third in line. But that's for loans over $25,000. So if you want to avoid that, then I guess that's something to keep in mind. So you would accept whatever amount you choose on this screen. And then you will get down to these three sections there at the right, the steps to complete. You'll verify your identity. When you click that box, it will ask you questions like, did you ever live on this street? And they'll give you 3 different random addresses. Or did you ever work for this company? Things like that. So you'll have to answer those correctly to verify you are who you say you are. The next section would be the electronic disbursement, and that is basically to put in your bank routing number and your account number to make sure it's correct. And I would double check that because there have been problems. People put the wrong digit and it caused all kinds of delays. So double check all of this before you click it. And then the last box that's circled or highlighted is your closing documents. And when you click start, you will then see the PDF of the actual loan agreement, which is multiple pages. And as I put there, noted at the second to the last bullet point in red, please download that document and read the loan contract to make sure you understand everything about the loan so you are aware and that you have that agreement available to you. Once you read through that, you'll type in your name, electronic signature, and 5 business days, or within 5 business days, the loan amount would be dispersed to you if everything goes right. So what is the use or proper use of these loans? It is solely meant to keep a business solvent, meaning it's to help you pay your bills, your loan payments, your utility bills, your payroll, anything that you normally need to pay for to keep the doors open of a business. So it is explicitly used for that. You cannot use this to refinance or pay off an old debt of some sort to get it at the lower term. You're not allowed to do that. And you're not supposed to use these, you cannot use these funds to buy capital assets, meaning add on to your building, buy a new vehicle, things like that. And of course, no personal reasons. It's solely for the business to keep your working capital, your cash flow there to ensure that you keep your doors open for a 6-month period. So by law, these disaster loans cannot compete with the private lending sector. That's one of the caveats with this. So it is really, there's a lot you can use these funds for, but you just can't use it to refinance things or buy additional capital assets. And of course, there at the bottom, I put the FAQs, frequently asked questions for the program. This is, I think, page 3 of the loan agreement, the contract, if you will. And it states their use of loan proceeds. It is solely to be used as working capital to alleviate economic injury caused by a disaster occurring in January this year. And so that's just one of the pages of that loan agreement. So please download it and read it. So you may be declined. There have been a lot of these, and when they do decline your loan application, they will send you an email or mail with a reason. It'll either be credit history, your non-eligible business, your delinquent child support, any of these reasons. I won't read them, but you are also given 6 months to request reconsideration of your loan. And that's what I'm going to talk about now. What you should send in to make sure you send as much information as possible to get your loan reconsidered and it gets resolved as quickly as possible. So they will give you a reason. That there have been a few cases where they were verbally told the loan was declined and they didn't give a reason, but for the most part, people get a reason. And so what I highly recommend people do is you send the SBA, and there's 3 ways to send it: the email, fax, or physical mail. Send the SBA documentation that justifies A, you're a legit business, B, you've suffered economic injury. You're a legit business, you need this to stay open, and provide some financial reporting to demonstrate just how much you've been injured by the current economy in this situation. So you have 6 months to do that. I'd recommend doing it as soon as you can. And basically the point of this is to provide information that would overcome whatever reason they gave you. If one of the reasons is, credit history, if you know your credit score took a hit from, divorce or medical expenses, whatever it may be, explain that. And show them documentation that you've been, as far as the business is concerned, faithful in your payments, covering your debts, and that this was a personal matter, whatever it takes to overcome the reason. So these are the bullet points that I recommend you do. You would submit a copy of the decline letter so the person receiving it knows, okay, this is in response to this decline letter. So copy of the decline letter, a cover sheet, which I'll give you an example of in the next slide, that basically explains what you're submitting for reconsideration. I would submit a report of your profit and loss statement for last year, and then maybe a year to date, just to show the difference between 2019 and 2020. A copy of a previous tax return, because as I wrote there at the bottom, the SBA was not receiving the federal tax return transcripts from the IRS during the crisis. And so if the SBA didn't receive it, then they just to get through the 14 million applications, they would just bounce it back as a decline, unfortunately. So submit a tax return. I have a link to the SBA Form 3502, which is just a one-page document, very simple. And then you just need to sign a copy of the IRS Form 4506T, which is basically your authorization to let the SBA pull a tax transcript from the IRS on your behalf. That's all that is. And as I mentioned, if you know your credit history or score is an issue, provide some explanation, show them, a printout of how you've paid down business loans faithfully, and that it's a personal matter, but as far as business is concerned, you have demonstrated good credit worthiness. So whatever it takes, submit it. I say the more you submit, the better. That way there's no back and forth. And this is just an example of a good cover sheet that you would put in your request for reconsideration, and if you're requesting more funds, which I'll get to next. But basically, you're asking for reconsideration. You give your EIDL loan application number, which begins with the number 3. You put your business legal name, and this is important because you may have inadvertently applied under the doing business as, the DBA, and not the legal name of the business. So you need to make sure your application name matches with your tax return. So put your business legal name, include the copy of the denial letter, Put your bank information. I'd say a copy of your canceled check or deposit slip that shows clearly what your ACH routing number is for your account, your business account. Copy of your driver's license, that always helps with verifying ID. And then briefly explain why you need the EIDL. And you can even include, status of your current liabilities, your payments that are due coming up that you need to cover, and then briefly say what your business does in a very succinct way. This is my website. I'm a furniture store, or whatever your business is, just explain it. And then list the PDFs you're including, your 2018 tax return, Form X, Form Y, Form Z. It's also a good idea if you can email this to title the PDF file itself what it is. So instead of just this gobbledygook file number name, it would show name of your business dash 2018 tax return. That way it's easy for the person reviewing this to go through it and know what it is. And then include your phone number that you can be reached at, sincerely your name. And so this will be in the slide deck you receive. I recommend doing something similar. If you're asking for additional funds, there are some people that, 6 months of working capital would be more like $80,000, $90,000, but they just got a $18,000 loan that clearly isn't sufficient. You can request more funds. Basically, you would email, that's on the next screen, the address or fax or physical mail, a cover sheet explaining why you need more funding. Demonstrate it with whatever financial documentation you could show. Last year's financials compared to this year. Also include a tax return, that SBA Form 3502, the IRS transcript authorization, and this is where you'd send both reconsiderations and more funding. Is the top there is the physical address. You can mail it or send it via UPS, FedEx, fax number, the 202 number, and then that email address, pdcrecons@sba.gov. If you are requesting more funding, you can put increase in the subject line. That helps sort your email for faster service. So if you have a loan right now and there is a UCC lien on your business assets and you need to transfer something, you're selling something, you're moving, you need to, of course, you can't sell anything unless if there's a lien on it. So this is how you get a temporary, lifting of the lien. Is I email both these email addresses there at the top, write COVID subordination in the subject line. These are 2 numbers to call if you're looking for a payoff amount. Let's say, what would be the payoff amount next Friday? They'll give you that. Also for your, when you start paying for this loan, you don't have to pay for a year after you get the money. But once that starts happening, the SBA Form 1201, you need to complete that, and then it's done through this website, pay.gov, and this link is active, so you can check that out. You can also mail a subordination request or fax it to that number there at the bottom. So if you need to process an insurance claim on your property or equipment, as I said, the insurance company will issue you a check to your name and also to the SBA and maybe another lien holder. So you would need, in order to cash that, the SBA endorsement on that check. So basically, these are the instructions. Provide this information to the center in Fort Worth, and include these items listed there at the bottom, especially the EIDL loan number that corresponds to it. and a good phone number and address where they would send the endorsed check back to you. The process can take about 10 days, so hopefully less. So if you or someone you know has, or if you're a lender and there's been some fraudulent deposits or whatnot happening with one of your clients, there's a National Center for Disaster Fraud hotline, and that is specifically for disaster fraud, disaster loan fraud. And there's that 1-866 number, and also there's an online complaint form that I would recommend you can submit documentation evidence as to what happened. Also, lenders can report fraud, waste, abuse, mismanagement of federal funds with any SBA program or personnel at the SBA Office of Inspector General, that's OIG, that 1-800 number there at the bottom. And there's also an online complaint form that you can submit information. As I mentioned at the beginning, current SBA borrowers will have 6 months of payments, full payments of their existing 7A or 504 loans. And anyone that obtains a new 7A prior or disbursement of a 7A loan prior to September 27th will enjoy that benefit of 6 months of paid relief. There's also deferment. If you're not able to do that in time, you can defer the payments for 6 months as well. Because these 7A loans, you go through a lender to get that, a 7A or express loans. So it takes a few days to get that finalized. So September 27th is coming up quick, and that process takes a few days. So please call your lender as soon as you can. There's phishing going on, emails mimicking SBA. If you're in doubt, don't click it. You can forward that information to one of us here at the Wichita District Office. That's me there at the bottom, Michael Almack, Economic Development Specialist. That's my email, my office and cell number. And also continue to check out the Kansas Small Business Development Center's COVID-19 assistance and recovery webinars. And if anything new comes out of Washington, I will be sure to get that information to you through webinars and so forth on that website. So please stay tuned. And also, we'd like to hear your feedback. Was this webinar helpful? SBA.gov feedback. I would appreciate if you did that. So I will stop sharing. And if there are any questions I can answer, I'd be happy to do so. Oh, you're welcome, Mr. Lopez. Appreciate that. Any other questions? Well, if not, Mindy at the SBDC will send you this PDF document. And you can always reach out to me via email or phone after the fact. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your patience. And I hope this is helpful.
Oh, Michael.
Okay, we did get a question. Yeah, if a nonprofit is paying a fundraising consultant, can we use these funds for that too? If it's ongoing, same thing with paying yourself as a business owner. You can use the EIDL funds to pay yourself and your customers or your employees and your vendors as you customarily would. So, people wonder about that. Well, how am I going to justify paying myself? Well, if the history of your business shows that you take a withdrawal once every month or 2 months for this amount of money, there's no reason why you can't continue to do that, because you can demonstrate, if anyone ever asks you, look at my history, this is what I've done. If every September or October you pay your employees a bonus and you can demonstrate that's what you've done for the last 2 years, it's showing that these expenses are customary and part of doing business. This loan program is not supposed to be a hindrance or something that holds you back. It's supposed to help you, maintain your operations, pay your bills to keep going. So if that's something you've done customarily by paying a consultant to do X, Y, or Z for the business, then there's no reason why you can't continue to do that.
Michael, she also wants to know if rent is considered a relocation expense.
I don't think relocation, I don't quite get that, because rent would be something you pay every month. So that's one of the bills that EIDL would cover. So rent for the business is covered. Now, if you're a home-based business where you live in your office, or your office is in your house, then whatever you, on your tax returns, you appropriate X percentage of the household utility, property taxes, so forth and so on, for the business based on the percentage of the property you use for business. So you need to apply those same percentages when it comes to using EIDL funds for the business. So if 22% of your home is written off or deducted as business expense on your tax returns, then that 22% of your mortgage expense could be, something that the EIDL can pay for, not your entire mortgage. So it can get tricky for those working out of their house, those sole proprietors. And it can get really tricky if you use a vehicle for both business and personal use. You may be, it would be difficult because you need to, another very important tip is to keep the EIDL loan funds in a separate account from your personal business or even any other business account. Because if someone knocks on your door 2 years from now, 3 years from now, and wants to ask, okay, how did you use the EIDL funds? You need to be able to easily demonstrate all the EIDL money was in this account, and you can see all the checks and payments I've spent using the EIDL funds to justify that none of it was used for personal gain or personal expenses, that it was all for the business, and you can demonstrate that. So I think the next time I do this webinar, I need to really emphasize that the EIDL funds should be kept in a separate bank account to make it easier if and when someone inquires, okay, how did you use the funds? And that's possible. So you don't want to get in trouble 5 years from now just because you commingled funds. And it'd be very hard to unwind all that. So we are considering selling our building and renting a building. Well, if the loan was under $25,000 and there's no lien involved, the EIDL cannot be used to replace revenue. So if that's what you're getting at, is what you would have been receiving for rent, you want to use the EIDL funds to pay your business instead. You can't do that. This is not meant to replace revenues. These are meant for working capital. Talk to your bookkeeper about what that means. It's expenses directly related to your operations of your business. It's not meant to replace revenues or profits. So I wanted to make sure if we were paying mortgage that changed to rent, yeah, if it's the business, you know, instead of it being a business mortgage, it's now turned into a rent expense. So that is a monthly expense that you could use the EIDL for that.
So Michael, we do have another question. Someone said we submitted an EIDL with incorrect information at nonprofit. Now our loan is in a spin, non-advancing stage despite communication with the departments, including PDA Recon. Will we have to wait for the loan to be turned down in order to apply again? We had our credit pulled and our loan officer was reassigned. We continue to receive emails from the SBA asking us to approve the loan amount, but it just spins on the portal when we try to click to approve it.
Well, I would send, you know, going back to that reconsideration cover sheet, I would submit something to the reconsideration folks, either by the email or fax or paper mail, explaining your situation. This is your application number on June 18th, and then on July 22nd, whatever, you were going back and forth. I just wanted to provide additional information, verifying our business, you know, identity, our legitimacy. You know, here's our tax return, here's profit and loss, whatever information you can to show that, demonstrate that you know, this is the correct information. We're a legitimate business. We need the funds for X, Y, Z reason. And there's no reason why it wouldn't hurt. In fact, it could trigger to have your loan reviewed and approved faster. So I would not wait, because you may wait for weeks. As I mentioned, the SBA received 14 million applications, which is unheard of. So the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And not just be a squeaky wheel, but be the squeaky wheel that gives them more information than they ask for to justify your, you know, your need. I would, if, yeah, you got an email from SBA saying it needs to be approved, but you can't click onto it, I would try, before you go back to the SBA, I would try opening that portal link in a different browser. Use, you know, Chrome or Internet Explorer or Edge or Firefox. Try different browsers, because it could be your browser not activating, you know, something. And so check your browsers, empty your cache, whatever they call it, where you eliminate previous passwords and stuff for that portal, and try it again. If that still doesn't work, unfortunately, you may need to resort to that 800 number, and hopefully you won't be caller number 684, but you'll be able to receive that information faster. But there's a 1-800-736-6048. And there's, of course, the regular customer service number, 1-800-659-2955. That's all in this presentation, so please check it out. And Mindy, I will answer these after. Just send the Q&As to me, and I'll answer them with all that info.
Can do.
Okay. Well, I wish you all the best of luck. Thank you for your patience, and hopefully I'll see you again soon. Thank you.